Welcome back to the science of turning back time. Today we are exploring something we all experience every single day, but probably rarely stop to think about, and that's sound. So we know that sound can change how we feel. A piece of music can calm us, energize us, and actually move us to tears or transport us instantly back to another time in our lives. But the question is, what is sound actually doing to the body? Sound is vibration, and increasingly scientists are exploring how vibration, rhythm, and frequency interact with our nervous system, our brain, our heart, and even physical matter itself. My guest today is an international recording artist, Heather Schmid, set out to explore exactly that. So Heather traveled to the volcanic islands of the Azores to create a healing song with local musicians, bringing together ancient traditions, music, and modern science. And along the way, she worked with scientists and researchers, including leading cymatics researcher John Stuart Reid, whose work allows us to do something quite extraordinary, actually see sound and the patterns that vibration creates in matter. But Heather's journey didn't remain simply a scientific or musical exploration. While the microphones and cameras were rolling, something completely unexpected began happening to Heather herself. An experience that challenged the boundary between physiology, consciousness, and spirituality, and ultimately became the documentary Voice of the Earth. So before we get to that extraordinary part of Heather's story, I want to start with the science. Heather, welcome. Um, you're joining us today from Boston.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that intro. It was so perfectly synthesized. Glad to be here.
So, Heather, I'm going to jump straight in. Can you tell us
Mm.
what is sound actually doing to us?
Well, yes, and I'm so glad you were talking about John Stuart Reid because I started taking as an opera singer, I started taking his courses many years ago because we have all these amazing experience as a musician, and we know like the physics of our voice and our sound, but when we experience it in the concert halls, it's an intensity that has always really fascinated me, thinking there's a lot going on here that I don't understand, and like, let's get to the meat of it, like the science of it. So his work is beautiful because as a visual person, you can see the sound. And the first thing that I learned is that it's not a sound wave, actually, it's a sound bubble. So, at the core of the physics of it, sound is a bubble that emanates out. And so his work with the cymatics, you can actually see what happens on this, this quantum level or whatever to the physics of what sound is. And cymatics is the visualization of that. So studying his work, I understood that, wow, well, everything is vibration. And that, the sound that we make and even our own bodies have a vibration. And that can be measured. And it can also be seen. And so that sort of started the journey of going deep into what I had been living and experience in sound in this world as an international recording artist. And I was, raised and a classically trained opera singer, at the very beginning in my formative years. And so sound has always been sort of such an integral part of my life, but I didn't see it as just um everything, right? There are so many other layers of vibration that we don't think about, that we don't synthesize. We think, okay, I'm going to a concert hall to experience music, to experience sound, but actually it's everywhere all around us. And if we think of it in a more conscious way, we can be sort of in charge of our vibration, which was what happened with the movie and sort of the exploration of sound on that way.
So, it's interesting this you describe it like a bubble, but So, what actually happens physiologically in the body when the sound wave reaches us?
Yeah, so that his work is very interesting in that way because you can actually see it. So, for example, you're listening to your favorite song, and the sound is coming into every part of your body, not just your ears, but certainly your ears, right? And as the sound comes into your ears, your body on the cellular level is interacting with that vibration. And also, the sound is vibrating your bones. It's a physical experience. Your bones are interacting with this vibration, as well as the water in your body. The water in your body is interacting and sort of almost co-creating with this vibration that's coming in. So, for example, um, this morning I was humming along to a song I was hearing. So as I was humming, the um the nitric oxide is being released inside of my sinus cavities, and then it's affecting my amygdala, which is like, you're creating these happy juices, and you're changing the chemistry of your body by something very simple, as humming. So there's all these physical things that we're unconscious of that are happening when we're interacting with sound.
It is very interesting because we also run a dementia clinic. So I have my own practice, but I'm also involved in a dementia clinic, and I've seen people with quite advanced dementia who are almost, you know, not responsive. They're just kind of gone closed into their own world. And you play music, and you just immediately see this incredible change happening. And I think it's changing just so much more than than lifting mood. You can see this whole physiological change happening and people getting up and dancing, whereas previously before they were just so closed in. So there is something
Mm.
about music that just massively moves us.
Yes, I watched that movie, and my husband is a physician and does some of that work. So I have come with him. So I know exactly what you're it almost feels like at those points as a miracle, but actually it's physics. The sound coming in bypasses the conscious part of your mind and goes to the more subconscious part, the part that isn't involved in speech and sound, or involved in speech. And I have seen, yeah, I have also really experienced that incredible, um yeah, this really beautiful transformative thing that happens. And understanding the research behind it is that it really just it's a physical experience, right? It's the sound vibrating the parts of the body, and
Mm.
it's the mind activating in ways in other portions than the cerebral cortex. So, I just, yeah, I totally know what you're talking about.
So I'm curious, did you learn anything about the relationship between sound, breathing, heart rate, and the nervous system? Because I think one of the things we see a lot in clinic is a lot of nervous system dysregulation,
Mm.
and trying to find things that can bring in that regulation can be incredibly helpful. So, did you find any connection in that respect?
Yes, yes, so much of that. The Yeah, they have done this research, but if you think of it, to me, it's sort of an ancient coming back to the current, right? We have all of this science now that's emerging about how sound and vibration really helps us to regulate our nervous system. But in the indigenous time when people just stood in circle, drumming and singing together, they just knew it as a Wednesday. But here we have to sort of recreate this cultural norm, because when you sing in a circle, your heartbeat beats together. When you sing, your dysregulated heartbeat normalizes. And and even they've done studies with blood, like regulating blood pressure. And I know in my husband's practice, he does, just people's favorite music. There's plenty on YouTube or whatever, but they also have, software and whatnot that people can use. And as they're going to sleep, regulating the heart rate. And what I found is something that is really beautiful and useful, and something that we sort of do subconsciously, is that when we're feeling really out of sorts, to turn to music, to be able to help self-regulate. And that is what the research is showing, that we have so much more power to self-regulate than we think of. We think, I'm freaking out. I can't control myself. I can't. But wow, when we take that ownership to say, okay, I'm going to listen to this music, I am going to, allow it to just vibrate the inside of my cells to help self regulate. Um, it's really beautiful when you have these tools and these really just everyday things that can really help self-regulate. And
Mm.
they're doing a lot more in clinics, where just, listening to the favorite music, or a toning or chanting or spiritual hymns, really help to do that. And having that as a conscious practice is really beneficial for sure.
Oh, that's really interesting. So my husband is a physicist and tends to get very in his head. And the only way to really help him to regulate his music. So he has these 20-minute sessions a day where he'll put his headphones on. He's got his playlist of music, and he does heart math. The program
Yeah.
to regulate. And it's so
Mm.
interesting. You can see that the graph is like
Oh yeah.
totally crazy because he's been so stressed in his head all day, and then you just watch how very quickly that heart rate and the heart rate variability begins to kind of ease out. And I think, yeah, it's so interesting to watch just the power of that sound.
Mm.
Taking 20 minutes a day to really bring everything back into that regulation. It's quite incredible.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And to be able to see it physically, right? As a physicist, you want to
Mm,
see what's happening.
mm,
And that is the beautiful example of being able to really see and feel what's happening. And, people think, oh, you're listening to this gong and it's very woo woo. No, it's physics. It's the physics of the actual gong coming in and interacting with the physics of your body, the water of your body, the muscles, and your heart. The ability to regulate your heartbeat is really, yeah. That's what I loved of making the movie, to be able to really ground into the visuals of it.
yeah, I think, and we will have a link at the end where people can go and watch that, because I think it's incredible to visually see, the vibration impact.
Yeah.
Interesting. Also, I know that in Georgia, traditionally they used to build these healing chambers, which were basically sound chambers, which resonate and echo sound. And when somebody was ill, they would take them in, and they would have these songs. I think they're called Batanebi songs,
Mm.
where the healers would basically just line the chamber, and they would sing these healing songs, which would just echo off this chamber on, coming into this individual. And I think, what could be more healing than experiencing something like that?
Well, it's interesting because it really reminds me of John Stuart Reid's example of how he got into research and getting so deep into researching. He was in Egypt And I'm going to get the details, but it sounds exactly like this. So that he came into a chamber and he had a horrible back problem that he had had for many years. And I could tell this story because he tells it very openly. And he walked into the chamber and lied down um, in this on this table, and at that moment started toning. Um, and it echoed, as you say, it echoed around the entire, so the acoustics of the room were set up to vibrate, and to vibrate every part of his body. And he had an incredibly transcendent experience, and it echoed every part of his body, the water interacting with his body, and on the cellular level. And in after that experience, he said it was maybe 10 or not even 15 minutes. He sat up and he had no more back pain for the rest of, for the rest of his life. And he said it was a miraculous healing, but actually it was physics. And so that sort of started down his journey. And through my understanding, being a recording artist, they have now at MIT up the street here, they have recreated a similar thing where sound is engulfing your entire body. So underneath you and around you, so that every part of your body can experience the vibration. And it sounds that it is exactly the similar thing, that we're just recreating these. Here it is in the ancient cultures of Egypt pyramids, and then they're recreating it in in Georgia, and also certainly at MIT, and studying the why it's happening and what specifically is happening.
That's fascinating. Um, so do I understand it correctly that certain sound frequencies create certain patterns? So as you're changing frequency and sound, the pattern changes. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the cymoscope comes in, and the cymoscope is basically the measuring of the sound wave and what it look or the you can see the sound wave. So even they have these apps. I do have it on my phone, the cymoscope app, which shows, so you sing it la, and then you can see the sacred geometry of what the sound looks like. And
I need
and
that app.
yeah, I don't know, it's $6 or something. Maybe it's a little more, but it's fascinating because I have used that in many different places. So you can sing it to it and see your own vibrate. You can see your own cymoscope image of what that vibration is. And as you raise and lower your voice and your tones, you can see that image changing. So that as you are singing and whatnot, it will change the actual sacred. To me, it looks like sacred geometry. The image itself, and so from that is where I think a lot of this research from 432 and these numbers of what are the sacred tones and the sacred. I haven't delved too much into that. So I don't have, because I do feel there is variation in that. In fact, when I used the cymoscope when I was in Brazil and I sang the very same tone, it was a very different visualization than when I here at my house and I'm singing a tone like that. So I do see that there are other influences from what you would say. So, for example, in the movie, we we were in the Azores, and we had used the cymoscope quite a bit, and we saw the different locations like in nature. So nature and the waterfall has this beautiful, very, very gorgeous sacred geometry of what the sound of the waterfall has. So the visualization of the waterfall. And through John Stuart Reid's research, I understood that the very high frequency and the very low frequencies are the ones that are healing. So that's why when people go to sleep with that sound of that very high, so those are actually very, in research, the healing frequencies, as they say. And so I could see my own body interacting with those frequencies, which was in that location. So I feel like there are many other influences. For example, there's frequency and vibration everywhere. And so there are many other aspects to sound and vibration. And I don't know where I was going with that, but we were talking about the 432. And I feel like that's going to be, I think they're going to get to the meat of that in next year or the year after to really hone down into where, what specifically that means.
Yeah, absolutely. I have got a few questions around frequencies, specific frequencies coming up a little later.
Mm.
But I wanted to ask also, what about the brain? What do we know about music, rhythm, and brainwave activity?
Yeah, so me and my husband, so in my husband's primary care office, he has an EEG machine, which helps to look at the brain. So we had some good times listening to, hooking me up to all of he has a 64,
Oh, wow.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a real good one. It gets every part of the brain in there. And so we looked at brain waves, listening to different music, or even singing, or even like we're such nerds, right? Like this is what we do with our Fridays and nights. But honestly, it's really fascinating. So you see your brain, and I'm fully in alpha, right? It's in front of you. You can see the chart. So I'm fully in alpha. So similar to your husband when he is coming and starting the heart math. It reminds me of that moment when you're looking at your brain going biggity bobbity beebity bobbity. The all of the waves are and the alpha waves are really popping all around, and everything is just moving quite a lot. You can see there's a lot of brain activity of the alpha waves, which is this like the very cerebral activity, right? A lot of thinking. And research has shown that in the theta and the delta waves is where the juicy healing happens, right? Where when you find this very tranquil state where you're in control, where you have regulated your heart rate, where you have, this very healthy, and where you can, it's like the sort of the where the subconscious lies, right? Like the things that are happening underneath. So we listened to, for example, Mozart. I was doing a Mozart album, and so we were looking at the effects of Mozart. And you can see I start off very, very alpha, and then I could feel just, yeah, as the heart rate lowering, almost entering into a hypnotic state. And I could see that my brain was becoming more into the theta. And yeah, those wild waves were becoming so much more um uh flatlined even. And
Mm,
and that is what they did with the drumming. It reminds me of like the shamanic drumming where it puts you into that really hypnotic state,
yeah.
and you can just feel your whole physiology changing. And as they would feel like this very almost hypnotized state of being in the theta, of being deeply at peace and being in oneness. And so, yeah, that's what I've seen and experienced with the brain.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. And I think um, there's quite a lot of research been done in Mozart, particularly, right? I think there's something interesting there about that. Um, yeah, about his music. So I want to ask you. So it's all over social media. You've got all these like the 432 hertz, 5 to 8 hertz. the solfeggio frequencies and things. Is there, um, do you feel that there's evidence for particular frequencies having specific healing effects?
Yeah. So, um, I come at this from a different way because I'm an opera singer by training, and growing up, we learn how to fill an entire concert hall with your two little vocal cords, right? The the amplification of that is your training and using your whole body to create that sound is a very physical experience, right? And so up my upbringing of just really learning how to fill an entire space with sound gives me a a natural skepticism that when you hear like, for example, here's 432. Ma, to me, that is an incredibly annoying sound. That's 432. But the gong has a 432. So I get a little stuck in there is so much more than just that tone. There is the environment, there's the resonance, there is the overtones. We learn as an opera singer to really envelop the overtones. There is the difference between a very, very trained vocal cord that has learned to envelop the overtones and the whole body, accessing the entire diaphragm to really be able to envelop your whole body into that sound. And there's the timbre, there is the tone quality, there is the environment of which you are in. So it's so insulting to ping this note and say, this is 432 rather than what I just did after my lifetime of training. And so I get a little bit like, I feel like we have to use nuance, right? And
Yeah.
also it brings me back to a bit of cultural preference, right? So I have done a lot of mostly I'm an international recording artist. So performing, I got my start in China. I was opening 5-star hotels in all of these emerging marketplaces and in these new cities in China. And so the cultural background of what sounds beautiful to their ears is different than my pop music, Western Mozart listening ears were in Boston, growing up in Connecticut, which is different than my Pakistani born husband's upbringing and listening to the ragas and the qawwalis and this different tonal system. So to him, that sound of the Indian Bollywood singer is healing and beautiful, and it feels like home, and it feels like my mother's voice. And the Chinese opera singing of China, which to my ear sounded very, very pinging, is beautiful and cultural and like the history of you know so there's so many layers to what is a beautiful sound that we have to put that into our formula too. And so I feel like just pinging it, like if it feels beautiful to you, it is. Right. And so there are so if you hear that, you put the earphones on and you hear that 432 and it makes you feel so good and at peace and healed and you can feel your heartbeat, it is healing. So I think that, everything's sort of layered when we try to just put ourselves into that one little pinhole of you need this sound to heal you. It takes away a bit of our own power. And in the end, we are our own healing machines. And so we get to decide.
I love that. We are our own healing machines. And, you've just so beautifully described what I think we really bring across in functional medicine. Because I think our society has gotten to the point where people are, sort of handing over that power and what do I need
Mm.
to heal or cure this? And they're looking for that one fix. But the complexity is huge, and it is, we are very much our own healing machines if the body's just given the right conditions and the right things to be able to heal. So I love that.
Mm.
So what I found interesting about your story was that you didn't go to the Azores looking for a spiritual awakening. You went there as an artist to
Hmm.
explore sound and try to create a piece of music. Um, but I think there was an interesting experience for you in that.
Yeah, I went with my clipboard and my list of shots and my very strict schedule and my collaborations with. We were making this movie. I was going to hear the sounds of nature. We are going to combine the sounds of nature and record at these beautiful locations, which we did do, at the waterfall, and to use the hydrophone and record the whale sounds and the dolphin sounds. And I was going to work with these other musicians, and I had arranged these really beautifully talented Azorean musicians for us to collaborate together and make this song of the land. And the second I walked into this, we started walking up this mountain path, me and Sarah, who's a beautiful cinematographer. And we were walking up this mountain path, and we're like on this gorgeous, like overlooking the ocean. And I start shaking, like physically shaking, and feeling fine, but like physically shaking and like crying. And so here I am with the two, like he's holding the boom mic and Sarah's got the camera on my face, and I'm crying, walking up the mountain, and like, girl, this is going really wrong. Feeling like it's so incredibly natural, but also why am I freaking out? And really not understanding what was happening to my body. And I had to just sit on the side of this mountain and go through it. And what it looked like was shaking and crying and talking to myself and just going through this sort of physical episode. And it kept happening over and over again. And all of the beautiful that we go to the waterfall, and there's two different new guys, one with same boom mic, Gustavo is amazing. And I go in front of this waterfall, like 20 feet high waterfall. And again, I am shaking and crying and freaking out on camera, and we go to the ocean. The same thing happening. This is me, a great movie I'm making. But hearing the voice in my head and hearing the voice that was outside of my head saying, this is the most natural thing that happens. This is your healing. This is the healing vibrations of the nature sounds and the vibration coming into your body and shaking loose that
Mm.
which no longer serves. And this is what it looks like. It's emotional. It is a headache. It's a physical experience for your body to shake those vibrations out. And it is the most natural experience. And I
I,
saw, yeah, that the movie was about
mm.
sharing that experience so that we all can understand. And then going to John Stuart Reid and saying, what is happening to me? Explain this to me. And filming the conversation of him talking me off the ledge with physics and science and talking about how the vibration is coming into your body, and that which no longer serves is shaking out. And go watch this video of the cell, because in his research, you can see the cell reorganizing itself, and knowing that this is the most natural
Mm.
thing to happen. And that, yes, that is why you feel better after. That is why you feel more aligned. That is where you feel less anxious, and you can take that with you and use this as a practice.
Mm.
And how beautiful nature shared that with me.
I
Yeah.
love that story. And it's interesting, the shaking part, because we know that animals very often use shaking after trauma. So, deer, when they've been chased by a predator, once the threat is over, they will shake. And it's a way of sort of releasing and letting go some of that trauma so that it doesn't store in the body. And I think
Mm.
somewhere along the line, we've lost some of that ability to release things as we go. They kind of get stored in the body in different places. And yeah, so we, sometimes need a big um, event like that to be able to release and bring that, yeah, release some of that energy that's there.
Yes, yeah, and I heard through my meditation. So I'm a longtime meditator now, that when your body is ready to release some past trauma, something from your childhood, something from your past life, something from, last week, somebody screaming at your face or something, that you are that it will come out when it's ready, right? So when I was walking into nature and feeling those vibrations, I was ready to face those pieces that were.
Mm,
And so actually it's like it's to me, I understood it was this collaboration with my subconscious. I'm ready to release the traumas of my upbringing. And maybe I don't hear the stories or the specifics of it, but yeah, it was stored in my body. And
mm,
so it was this shaking loose of these stored traumas. You hear that those traumas are stored in your body, but to experience it and understand it, you're like, oh, actually, this is kind of great. Yes, I'm publicly crying. And yes, this is caught on my movie, which I'm making. But actually, how beautiful to be forever released from that trauma, and then to learn how to not let it store the next time, right? To publicly dance some, or I mean to dance something out, or to shake something out, it makes sense. I didn't totally understand that, but I see that I do that now. If you have a
mm.
really difficult conversation, to be like, "Ugh," like, and shake it off, I see that as a natural thing that we're sort of doing intuitively now.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh. Well, for our listeners who I'm pretty sure will want to go and have a look at the documentary, we will drop the link in down below as well. But it's been really, really lovely speaking to you, and a really fascinating conversation. But it just reminds us again that sometimes going back to, I wouldn't call it the basics, but I would, say the things that already surround us in life, nature, sound, all of these things can bring phenomenal healing.
Yes, yeah. I found that too, that the healing aspects of nature, we just need to go and to take a walk in the woods, the oxygen from the trees, the mycelium network under our feet are interacting with our body and healing us on such a beautiful, fundamental way,
Mhm.
that it was beautiful, that was also such an important part of making of this movie. That yes, we're hearing sound and vibration, but actually nature and the
Mm,
earth is our purest form of vibration. And that when we want to just heal our body and our mind and our racing mind, to walk in the woods and to allow the trees to speak to us and give us all of those good juices to help self-regulate. But yeah, the website is Vibrational Journeys. Voice of the Earth is the movie that is just released. We got 5 awards from the film festival, so that was a blessing. And we're just negotiating the network release now, so knocking on wood for that. And Vibrational Journeys is the upcoming series, which we filmed 2 episodes, which really delve deep into this different aspects of frequency and vibration and the science of it, and be able to see with John Stuart Reid's work the visualization of these beautiful mandalas. I'm really, really excited to have that be out in the world.
Yeah, it's great to be able to see those visuals. So I'm really excited about it. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. It was really such a pleasure.
Welcome to the Science of Turning Back Time. I'm your host, Charmaine Shepherd, and I'd like to welcome you on this journey as we explore the latest research and proven strategies that can help reverse biological aging, turn back time, increase longevity and health span. Let's dive right in.